Since 2005, the Vatican has offered a course for priests to be trained in the service of exorcism. In the last year, the course has bloomed, now training over 250 priests from 50 different countries. Worldwide, there has been an increase in the number of people reporting signs for demonic possession. 500,000 people in Italy reportedly seek exorcisms every year. These already high numbers seem to be on the rise in recent years. But why the increase in demonic reports? And why are these reports being directed towards exorcists instead of a trained physical and psychological expert? I believe that we can blame part of this issue on the prevalence of demonic possessions and exorcisms in the media. There has been a recent boom in horror movies that involve demons. Movies like The Exorcist and its 2023 sequel, The Conjuring series, and recently The Pope and His Exorcist, have all gained pretty massive amounts of public attention. These are just a sampling of recent and popular horror films that take advantage of this new trope. It is humanity's habit to see the unknown and put it into the context of the known. With the prevalence of Christianity worldwide, it comes as no surprise that perhaps mental illness has been confused and conflated with demonic possession. Catholic theorists think instead that this is a cultural move from traditional Christianity. They see a progression towards paganism, seeing an increase in the use of tarot cards and Ouija boards, rising alongside reports for demonic oppression. According to the questionnaire presented by the United States Conference for Catholic Bishops, there are two forms of exorcism: minor exorcisms, which are performed at baptisms and confirmations and other such minor, like everyday events. These are the most common and don't require approval beforehand by a bishop. Major exorcisms, on the other hand, are considerably more rare, as they require approval from the bishop and or the Vatican itself. This kind of exorcism calls for the priest to remove the spirit, energy, or demon in the name of Jesus. It can be difficult and draining for both the participant and the priest. Father Thomas, a trained exorcist in the United States for over a decade, says that he has performed major exorcisms on only 10 different people in the entire career as an exorcist. What the media, movies, and social commentary often get wrong while discussing exorcisms is all the work that goes into a typical formal Catholic exorcism. This is not just a simple process of calling up your local priest. Receiving permission to perform an exorcism is only granted after examination from a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other such physician, and usually a team. In the words of Father Thomas, an exorcism is the last resort. This change, however, has only been active in the last 20 years. In 1999, the Catholic Church enacted its first major change of exorcism rules since 1614, dictating a difference between demonic possession and or physical or psychological illness. With movies such as The Exorcist coming out in 1973, it's no wonder why William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist and the recent documentary, The Devil and Dr. Amorth, was surprised to learn this fact while filming for his documentary. It is an irresponsible exorcist that jumps to do their job without consulting other professionals. I will be discussing 3 separate, somewhat recent cases for possession, 2 of which have gone to criminal court. The first that we will discuss is Father Amorth's exorcism of a woman named Christine. This exorcism is shown in a documentary that Father Amorth allowed William Friedkin to film. This was the first exorcism that was allowed to be filmed, aside from like just like the auditory recordings that you can hear from some. Surprisingly, despite Friedkin's notoriety, the way that most people were introduced to this film was through a popular YouTuber, JonTron. This opened the case past classic horror movie fans into the world of basic YouTube watchers. The woman that Father Amorth exorcised in the documentary has been previously exorcised by him 8 different times. She was a trained architect, but is currently unable to work. She requested Father Amorth, the chief exorcist of the Vatican, after being unable to be treated by previous physicians. In the film, during the exorcism, she has to be held down as she yells and like thrashes and curses at everyone around her as it's being performed. It's a fairly tame case in terms of supposed demonic possession. The next case is Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's, or the Devil Made Me Do It case. According to Ed and Lorraine Warren, after an exorcism of a child named David, the devil released itself from David and latched on to Arnie Johnson. After a couple months, Johnson ended up murdering his landlord. This is the first court case that argued for demonic possession and the denial of personal responsibility for a crime in American history. This case is a hot topic because while Johnson did get a sentence for 10 to 20 years for manslaughter, he only ended up serving 5 on account for good behavior. While Ed and Lorraine Warren did petition the Vatican for a formal exorcism and did receive 6 priests, this did occur in 1981, and so they didn't need independent verification for possession at this time. In fact, after Ed and Lorraine Warren released the book, The Devil in Connecticut, the original possessee, David, and his family claimed that the Warrens fabricated most of the story and took advantage of his and his family's mental health. The last is the case that inspired The Exorcist, the case of Anneliese Michel. In 1969, Anneliese Michel reported a pressing feeling on her chest. She and her mother did go to a family doctor and eventually a Dr. Luthi, who was a neurologist. After multiple brain scans that showed no abnormalities, they tentatively diagnosed her with some form of seizure disorder. In 1973, after reporting visions of demons, auditory hallucinations, and a smell of burnt feces, Dr. Luthi recommended that they seek a Jesuit. This claim Dr. Luthi would later deny. While the family did search for a priest, they did not end the search for a physical answer until a little later. They consulted with a Freudian psychiatrist who diagnosed her with neurotic tendencies and possible epilepsy, and another neurologist found that she had epileptic patterns. This was despite being 1973 and Freud being fairly discredited by this time. It is my belief that a behavioral psychologist would have been a better fit. Towards the end, Anneliese refused medical attention and her family no longer sought it either. One of the 2 priests that they brought in did also bring in his friend, a Dr. Richard Roth, to consult. However, he is quoted as saying he was only there for scientific curiosity and not as a physician. Anneliese died in 1976 of starvation at the age of 23 after undergoing 67 different exorcisms. Her parents and the 2 priests were charged with negligent homicide in 1978. While it can be argued that Annalise Michel displayed many classic signs for possession, such as disturbed behavior, inordinate amounts of strength, hearing demons, and being able to speak about things that she shouldn't know about, it can't be argued that the family shouldn't have continued their search for medical attention alongside the failed exorcisms. It is my personal belief that the continuous failed exorcisms only exacerbated her condition and cemented her belief in her possession. While these cases have inspired the present-day horror film franchise, they have all shared some common link with Christianity. This background belief system has perhaps influenced the way the individual mind moves to accompany mental illness. In Italy, where Christine lived, it is relatively common to get at least a minor exorcism every year. Her belief in the need for Father Amorth's help is reasonable with this in mind. It's not completely implausible that she, while suffering some sort of neurotic or psychotic tendencies, falls back onto the belief of God to help her. This can also be seen in Annalise Michel, who, while suffering through probable epilepsy diagnosis, also had to live with her major hallucinations. Father Thomas has also said that many of the people that report signs of demonic possession and oppression also happen to have some form of childhood trauma. Father Thomas, Father Amorth, and many others seem to believe that trauma like this opens the mind and body to negative energy. It also is known, however, that many psychological disorders stem from childhood trauma. DID and other dissociative disorders, for instance, also most often occur after childhood trauma. There is a valid critique of major exorcisms because of the power imbalance between the priest and the people requesting exorcism. Many believe that this has been used to abuse children and other vulnerable people, especially because there has been cases where the participant's death is linked to an exorcism ritual. In trying to address this, the UK in 2012 created a national action plan to help prevent the abuse of children in religious rituals. While some cases that claim possession or oppression sound unlikely, it is still a cry for help that should not be disregarded. It is a general worry that misdiagnosis could lead people to missing out on the treatment they need if their symptoms are linked only to supernatural phenomenon. In the case of both Christine and Annalise, the question should be asked, when is enough enough? Is enough after 10 exorcisms or 68? When should a person's right to control their health be overruled to seek alternative medical attention? Some of these cases may have happened more than 40 years ago, but their lessons should not be repeated during the present growing climate surrounding demonic possession. Exorcism may prove useful and may be helpful in select scenarios, but overall, I believe that medical intervention should be a first and continuous practice through helping a person through mental and physical struggles alongside a faith-based plan.